On today's show, we're going to run through some of the names that really jumped out to me at the NFL Combine. I know I'm probably hitting this a little bit too late, but I still wanted to touch on some guys that really caught my attention. I just want to put on your radar as we inch closer to the NFL Draft. But before we do, we're doing a very unique competition, and it's a race to just 15 subscribers. Very short-term sprint here because I was thinking the Combine, everyone gets so sucked up in the 40-yard dash, but what about the three-cone drill? What about the 10-yard split? So just a race to 15 subscribers between us and Steelers Talk. So be one of the 15 to get us there today. Now, let's talk about draft targets and guys that jumped out to me because everyone is clamoring over this wide receiver class, as they should. And I think the Browns are likely going to go wide receiver unless they make a big move in free agency at that position. And I just want to put this on your radar. When it comes to wide receivers in the draft, what I've done is I've gone through the last 5 years of the draft, and I counted all the wide receivers that was selected before pick 54. And it's been very interesting. 4, 11, 7, 12, 6. So we're kind of due for a lot of wide receivers to get taken earlier in this draft, which is not ideal for the Browns since they need a wide receiver. So I'd love for one of their top guys on their big board to be available at pick number 54. But I do think people do have to somewhat brace themselves for the possibility of your favorite guy or one of the top guys just being taken before the Browns are on the clock. So with that being said, let's run through guys that really jumped out to me here. Some players to watch for coming out of the NFL Combine for Andrew Berry and the Cleveland Browns as they begin to really kick their draft coverage and just draft players, draft prep into a higher gear. First guy we're going to look at is A.D. Mitchell out of Texas. The two Longhorn wide receivers, I think, dramatically increased their draft stock following a week in Indianapolis. Both A.D. Mitchell, and we'll look at his teammate or talk about his teammate later on, had a really strong week at the NFL Combine, and now they are flirting into that round one territory. But we all know that mock drafts tend to put guys a little bit earlier than they always end up going, and maybe A.D. Mitchell falls to the Browns at pick number 54. If he does, that'd be a phenomenal selection. I think he's an excellent route runner. That's really important to keep an eye on because there are lots of talented and very athletically gifted guys in college football. But when you get to the NFL, everyone's talented and everyone's a super athlete. So how can you separate yourself? Well, by literally running a really good route, reading defenses. Route running is more than just like, I know how to run a nice curl. It means I know when the defense lines up like this, what my quarterback is thinking that I should do, and we're going to do it on the fly. He's 6'2", 205 pounds. He ran a 4.3, 4.40, so blazing speed. That was second at the Combine, finished first in the broad jump, finished top 10 in vertical. So athletically, it all checks out in my eyes. Now, a fun little Combine fact that we're going to share with you guys in just a moment here, I think is very important for the Browns and very important for Browns fans to keep an eye on because there are some really good wide receivers here, but not everyone's going to be available for the Cleveland Browns at pick number 54. However, I do think this fact does a lot of justice for A.D. Mitchell. Since 2015, only 2 wide receivers have been at least 6'2" and 205 pounds and ran a sub 4.35. That's A.D. Mitchell and DK Metcalf. That's a really good category to be in, right? To be tall, to be strong, to be fast. To get that triangle, it's you and DK Metcalf. So I don't think you can look at that and comp him to DK Metcalf. I don't think they're exactly the same type of physicality level of a wide receiver, but I think it gives you a good jumping off point. Next player to watch for is running back Trey Benson out of Florida State. Obviously, the Browns are going to be doing some research on running backs as they await Nick Chubb's return, which I think he's going to return for the Browns in 2024. When he plays next is a different question. And they need to prepare for a season that doesn't have Nick Chubb for all 17 games or possibly even half of the games. And I think Trey Benson coming out of Florida State is a really good option for a couple of reasons. One, doesn't have a lot of tread on his tires. You can see 154 carries, 156 carries. Like, he did not get ran into the ground in Tallahassee. He did suffer a torn ACL earlier in his collegiate career, but So did Nick Chubb, and we've seen plenty of guys bounce back after getting injured in college. 6 foot, 216 pounds, and he ran a below a 440. I think people usually get too worked up in the combine measurements, but I do think some numbers for some positions are really important. I think height and wingspan for corner is really important. Quarter of an inch is the difference between a pass breakup and getting mossed. I've said that a bazillion times on the channel. And I think 40-yard dashes for running backs are important. Because how often are offensive linemen or linebackers just running straight for 40 yards? Not all that often. Running backs, that is literally a part of the job. When you get free, can you stay free and not get taken down from behind? 4.39, that's definitely going to help keep the separation between you and the safety. I think a running back pick is very much in play for day 3 of the draft. I don't think Trey Benson falls to day 3 of the draft, but then again, it's the NFL draft. Like, no one knows what's going to happen. Expect the unexpected, if you will. There are lots of guys that fall to day 3 that have no business being in day 3, but it does happen. So I don't think the Browns prioritize it with their second-round pick. Maybe their third-round pick if they really fall in love with the player like Trey Benson, but that's one name to keep an eye on. Now, who do you want the Browns to go running back in round 2? Do you want them to be the first team to take a running back off the board? And that may very well happen at pick number 54. Or should they address other team needs? Let me know in the comment section. Third player to watch for after the combine, I'm going to go with Oregon wide receiver Troy Franklin. This is a guy that we have talked about before on the channel, and I do think he'd be a really fun pick for the Browns at 54. Last season for the Ducks, I mean, you want to talk about production. You want to talk about a guy that's actually done it, and it's not just going off of traits that you hope can translate well to the next level. That's Franklin. 81 grabs, 1,300 yards. That's an average of 17 yards a reception and 14 touchdowns. 6'2", 176 pounds. So a lighter frame, and he ran a 4.41, which I think people were hoping it would be a little bit faster than 4.41, but still, let's not knock 4.41. He's also, for reference, that's 0.13 faster than Cedric Tillman. So the Browns with Tillman and with David Bell went with different style of receivers. Troy Franklin, as cliche as it sounds, is your vertical guy, right? He's the one that's going to make the big play down the field. He's the one that's going to top off the defense. He's the one that's going to blow past the corner. That is Troy Franklin. So if that's the type of receiver the Browns are looking for in this year's draft to go a different direction than the last 2 drafts, he definitely checks a lot of boxes for the Browns at 54. So watch for Troy Franklin at number 54 because like we talked about at the very beginning of the show, if history tells us anything, there might be 10 or 11 receivers taken before the Browns at 54. And Troy Franklin may not be one of those 10 guys. And so he might be their best pick at number 54. Now, this next guy is definitely someone the Browns would love to see available for them in the middle of round number 2. It is Ladd McConkey, the wide receiver out of Georgia. Now, McConkey is a very interesting prospect because we didn't see a whole lot of him last year for the Bulldogs. He got injured, kind of like Brock Bowers. He missed some time. So there's not a ton of tape on him, but he really rose up the draft boards during the Combine and now into during the Senior Bowl and then most recently into the Combine. 6 foot, 186 pounds, and ran a 4.39 40. Now, I've seen a lot of people comp him to Elijah Moore, where he's got that twitchiness, maybe that element of being a kind of a gadget-esque player. And I don't think that's the best comp. I think he can be a pretty good regular wide receiver. I don't think he has to be a guy that gets used in special packages and almost like a Percy Harvin for everyone that watched the NFL a decade ago. Like, I don't think Ladd McConkey is just a gadget guy. I think he can be a legit wide receiver, and I think his stock has really rose. And if the Browns find him available at number 54, he may be someone that they are rushing to the table to select. To wrap it up here, let's go with another wide receiver. I'm going to go with Xavier Legette. You might notice a trend here. The wide receivers really dominated the Combine. Like, they've been dominating all draft coverage, and they showed why in Indianapolis. Last season for the Gamecocks, 71 grabs, 1,200 yards. That's an average of 17.7 and 7 touchdowns. So similar to Troy Franklin, like no questions or issues about a production level. He's a much bigger receiver than the last few guys we have talked about. He's 6'1", all right, 221 pounds, and he still ran a 4.39 40. He has no business being that big and running that fast. Like, when you're looking for a guy that athletically has a lot of the traits and the production is there like we saw last year in South Carolina, he's your man. Now, he excels with contested catches and yak. I know he went to South Carolina. Deebo Samuel went to South Carolina. You can kind of make some of the loose comparisons. I don't think it's a complete apples-to-apples comp, but Xavier Legette, he does have some issues with drops and did not necessarily flourish at the Senior Bowl, but I don't think you should really let a week in January override 3-4 months of the college football season. We saw him make some really nice plays. So definitely another name to keep an eye on. My personal pick out of the entire bunch we looked at, I'd go with A.D. Mitchell. And I don't even think A.D. Mitchell will likely be there at number 54, but it is the NFL draft, and like a lot of guys thought last year, I mean, this is just my Tennessee bias showing right now, Cedric Tillman and Jalen Hyatt would be round 2 picks. And they fell to round number 3. So sometimes media members can get caught up in a player too much, and the NFL execs are just not on the same page. But if A.D. Mitchell is available at pick 54, I am sprinting to Detroit to make. Actually, no, that'd be a bad idea. I would not get there in time. I'll just place a normal phone call, and we'll get the draft pick in. Now, if you're still watching today's video, scroll on down for me and do me a solid. Type CLE. This is a good way for me to know who the MVPs of the channel are, like the people that watch all the way to the end of the video. That way I can just show some love to those of you that are rocking with me the entire time. Let's pick a card to wrap up the show. Jeremy Beatley. Which card do you want to
5 of spades.
5 of spades? Okay, confident. Say it with your spine. I like it. Let's say it with your chest. I'm going to go with the 9 of clubs. Okay, here we go. Damn it. 10 of clubs. 10 of clubs. 10 of clubs. All right, that is it for today's edition of the Cleveland Browns Report. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll let you guys get back to the rest of your day, and we will see you all later.